Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Hess-Goetz, and I've been asked to speak to you today about a very special kind of nursing education. I am a graduate student at Doosan, majoring in nursing education. As I present to you today, should you have any ideas or thoughts, I would love to hear from you. I've come a long way with this program, but I still understand I still have a long way to go. It is a true honor to be here today, and I truly appreciate your time. Why they asked me to speak. They asked me to speak because one of my students was recently featured on 60 Minutes. She is a Hillsborough County student that bounced around from motel to motel in the middle of the pandemic. And her story resonated with some of the people here at Duke. Kara was in my class when the pandemic struck. She represents a population of students that I work with. While she was in my classroom before the pandemic, she often would skip my class. I went to the lunchroom and found her one day, and the reason that she skipped my class is because she smelled like cigarette smoke. She was living in a motel room with her mother, stepfather, and siblings. The mother smoked in the room, and that meant all of Kara's clothes smelled like smoke. We were just getting this obstacle under control when the pandemic hit. That brought about a new set of problems that needed to be solved. Students like Kara need an educational approach that will be flexible and works to increase their self-confidence. I have to answer to the Board of Nursing, just like every other nursing program, but I also have to answer to our community, and it's a tightrope that I walk each day. What I will cover today is I will introduce myself, my students, and my program to you. Then I will take you inside my room at Wharton High School, and I will talk about some of the problems we've had at Wharton. Then you will get to meet one of my students, Amaris. I will roadmap for you how I help students to succeed and how I turn their hope into action. I will then share some examples and then offer you some ways that you could support programs like mine. Teaching students to heal themselves through caring for others. I get scared about what my life would be like if it wasn't for nursing. I grew up right outside of Flint, Michigan, and I came from a world of hopelessness. When I say nursing saved my life, it is very much the truth. When I stepped into the hospital, so many people needed care, and I could check my problems at the door and focus, at least for a time, on theirs. I didn't have a place to be in the world for a very long time, and nursing saved my life and gave me that place. I hope to share this with my students. When we love, we always strive to become better than we are. When we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. This group of students are at the turning point in their life. They need reasons to make good choices. They will also see through any people that are not genuine. To teach this population, you have to be all in. You have to love them when they are unlovable. You not only have to teach them the science of nursing, but you also have to teach them about their self-worth. I'm a little self-conscious as I talk to you today. Most of you in this room have much more training and can run circles around me when it comes to credentials. What I offer you today is a glimpse into my classroom where future nurses and other healthcare professionals are made, where dreams are born and protected. What I teach in nursing is much different than what can be found at an undergraduate or graduate level. I don't teach my students the complex lab values of a DKA versus an HHS patient, or the medications that a patient recovering from an MI will need. What I teach is how to clean a C. diff patient in a way that maintains their dignity, or how to speak to a confused older patient that maintains the idea that they still matter. When you remove all the technical advances, all that remains is care that is caring. And while holding a patient's hand may never save their lives, it might give them hope and courage. And how do you teach hope and courage, you might ask? And I look around at my students where hope and courage abounds. If you Google Wharton High School and violence, you'll see many examples of how Wharton High School has had lots of problems in the past with violence. What I understand about this is when you come from an environment that offers you very little in the way of material goods, your pride becomes all that you have. You have to protect that to survive. It is a very complex problem. What I hope to do is to give them a place to be that will offer them an alternative to fighting to protect their pride. Struggles can turn into pride, so it is my job to provide them with the right kind of struggles. Amaris came to me right at the exact time. She came to me from the Bronx. I'm going to let her share her story with you now.
Hello, my name is Amaris Fernandez, and I am a student at Wharton High School, specifically. Hello, my name is Amaris Fernandez, and I am a student at Wharton High School, specifically a student of Ms. Goetz in the CNA program. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about myself and how I got to this point. So back in the summer of 2018, my mom picked me and my family up and moved us here to Tampa, Florida. I went to a health and science charter school. And in that school, there was a boy closer to my age. He was in a grade higher than me. He was killed that summer, about 2 weeks after the last day of school. His name was Junior Guzman Feliz. It was a really tragic, and it changed my life, basically. The whole event, the whole summer, the move here. And I feel like that was a big part of my wanting to go into the healthcare field. Since I was a little kid, I would dress up in my mom's scrubs and pretend to be her. I really wanted to follow in her footsteps, but I was 14 when that happened, and since then, I became sure, following the event of why I moved here, it really changed my life and my perspective of the world. I felt as though there needed to be more people who cared in the healthcare field. There needed to be more people who would help. And I know that the healthcare field is designed to help others, but there needed to be more compassion. That's what I felt, and that's why I continue to go on this path. Once I moved here, I got registered for my classes at Wharton, and I knew nobody at all. I was put into Ms. Goetz's class, into her CNA class, and that was by mistake. I was only a sophomore, and the class is designed for seniors only, so it was completely by mistake. I think the translation was lost. I went to a health and science charter school in New York, and there was some type of miscommunication. I was misplaced in the class, and I remember sitting there for probably 45 minutes. Ms. Goetz was the first teacher, my first interaction. Her class was my first interaction with the school. This was my first time, sitting down, and just the energy of the class really, I knew from that day that I wanted to be in that class. Anything I did after that day was, I wanted to be in that class. All my actions led me to sit in the seat that I am sitting in now. From my first day as sophomore year at Wharton High School. I was a part of the HOSA club, and you can ask any of the former students from my sophomore year to now. I definitely harassed them frequently and asked a lot of questions like, how do I get into the program? What is it like? I was very determined, and I'm here. And I just passed my CNA test. I just received my license in the mail actually today. And it's so rewarding to finally get to this point. It's almost like unreal to me. And that's my story. Thank you for listening.
That is Amaris, and Amaris came to us, and as you can hear from her own words, she needed this place to be in the world, and my program gave her that place. She came from a very violent place, and it gave her something to do and somewhere to be. What if we took this group with so many problems and gave them a job that focuses on the problems of others? The Dalai Lama teaches us that joy is the reward, really, of seeking to give joy to others. When you show compassion, when you show caring, when you show love to others, do things for others, in a wonderful way, you have a deep joy that you can get no other way, and you can't buy it with money. That is my goal with all of these students, is to help them to understand the joy that comes from giving. Action is hope. There is no hope without action. So my goal is to build the hope, define the action, and then turn them into action-filled machines. Could it be that simple? Could hope really be that simple? My job is specifically to sell hope to this population while meeting the needs that is a deficit in our healthcare worker environment. Hope is defined as the process of thinking about one's goals along with the motivation to move towards those goals and ways to achieve those goals. Doing my research, it could be that simple as building hope in this population. Hope is tied to worth, so I have to begin at their worth. My roadmap for their success is to help the students to gain confidence by using their voice. When others listen, they understand their worth. When they understand their worth, they can begin to hope. Once they hope, they can act. Once they see how their actions affect others, they can begin to achieve. And this is the foundation of my program. Many college professors will start over here at the Achieve block, but I have to start back here in building their confidence. The way that I help to build their confidence is to have them define a problem that they see in their community. I give them free range. These students pictured here noticed a lack of hydration opportunities on campus. They met with the principal and shared their concerns. He agreed with them, and together they interviewed vending machine companies. On the day the vending machines were delivered, they were so proud of themselves. It's just a simple vending machine, but it was the first time that these students were able to use their voice and positively affect their community. There's a lot of power in that. This is another student of mine that I helped her to learn how to use her voice. Bailey was in 9th grade when she was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, and then later she was diagnosed with AML that was a side effect of her chemo. Both times she almost lost her battle, but she pulled through. The AML was resolved with a bone marrow transplant. During her treatment, she experienced the best of healthcare and unfortunately the worst of healthcare. Her family was very involved in her care and kept very careful track of everything. Before giving any medication, her family would ask the name of it, the dosage, and the reason. One night, a nurse tried to administer a drug to Bailey that was contraindicated for her. When the dad questioned the nurse became angry, and even though the father had just caught a medical error, the nurse gave Bailey a code gray. Another time, Bailey was given a code gray when she tried to help a nurse who was trying to access her port. Bailey is very tiny, and the port was very difficult to ask. After several attempts, each one very painful for Bailey, Bailey offered to help and told the nurse how to access her port. The nurse did successfully access the port with Bailey's help, but she again was given a code gray for her efforts. Bailey wants to make a difference in healthcare and wanted to address this problem. I encouraged her to think about ways that she could use her situation to make it better. So Bailey used her voice to create Code Gray. These are books where family members and patients can keep track of all their medications and all their medical information in one place. She provides them free of charge to anyone who requests one. Another need my students defined in their community was a lack of birthday celebrations for children in foster care. So they adopted a local foster home and provided birthday parties complete with cake and a cake with the birthday child's name on it, lots of presents and decorations. This year they also provided Christmas presents for all the kids of that foster home. This is another example in a need that my students defined in the community. They participate in what's called Winterfest, where they turn the gym into a magical place of holiday fun and invite students from underprivileged schools to participate and have a day of fun. During Winterfest, they really get to interact with the population and get to see where they once were, and they get to connect to those students who are now walking their path they walked just a few years ago. And this can be very powerful for them and help them to see just how far they've come. This is one of my favorite stories of students finding their voice. This group of students decided they want to take all the children from that local foster home to Busch Gardens for the day. There were many problems with this. The foster home had asked Busch Gardens every year for the last 20 years to sponsor a visit and had always been told no. There were 45 children, and the tickets for Busch Gardens were around $100 apiece. There were many levels of permission that had to happen for this to take place. What about food for the kids during the day? It was difficult to remain a cheerleader with so many times I wanted to jump in and help and solve problems for them. But if I did that, I would take away their power, and that was not the goal. Many times they would have the whole thing in place only to have it fall apart the next week. They wanted to give up, but I was always beside them, not helping them, but cheering them on. They never gave up, and they eventually made it happen. This picture right here, by the way, is not all the children that went that day, but just the ones that wanted to be in the picture. One child that was part of this group, I was told it was their very first day in foster care. Can you imagine that? Your very first day in foster care, and you get a great day at an amusement park. This was such a powerful day of helping these students to learn how to use their voice to change their community. I think if you look at their smiles, it says it all. I'm sorry, I'm so proud of them. This was another example. We have a flu vaccine clinic day here at Wharton. Before my students got involved, only 17 students had signed up the most for the free vaccine. My students asked if they could help, seeing a need to increase that number. They were told that they could, and they increased that number to 780. They did this by creating social media campaigns directed at students on the level with the students. After that day, the nurse asked if they could help a little less. Maybe we could use their help in COVID-resistant communities. This was another program that they took part in, was they created a healthy eating fair directed at life after high school. This was a community health fair one of the local hospitals holds each year. After seeing a flyer at the hospital, they asked the program director if they could help. It has become an annual event for them now. Another way that they get involved is they run the blood drive here at Wharton. The nursing students noticed that there were many students that were having reactions after donating blood. Before the nursing students that were involved, 70 to 100 students would have reactions in the classroom. My students asked to help. Their goal became 0% of the students would have reactions. This is the PowerPoint that one of my students created just a few weeks ago for the blood drive. I assign one of them to be leaders, and I give them responsibility for the drive. They communicate directly with One Blood, making sure there's enough food and drink, and assigning student roles. They do everything except the actual draw. They are responsible for 100% of that blood drive except the draws. This student put together a PowerPoint that defined the different roles so that we would have students talking and engaging with students after the blood drive so that they could make sure that if there was a problem, they could identify it readily. They had another group that was responsible for making sure that the students ate and drank before they got on the bus. A group of students was responsible for check-in. And then this was really cool. They had students assigned to walkers. So instead of letting the students go directly back to class, they assigned a walker who was to walk and talk with them as they returned to class. They also assigned a group to bus runners to make sure that if there were spots open on the bus, there would immediately be the next student ready to go on the bus to donate. They broke everybody down into shifts. This was one student. And then he made sure that everybody understood what the signs were if somebody would pass out. That day they only had one student have a reaction, and they were able to catch them by doing the table talkers, talking to them after they donated. They take their roles very, very serious and take it as a badge of honor that they are the ones that run the blood drive at Wharton that day. I'm not even down there for the blood drive. They run it 100% on their own. They also define goals and make sure that everyone understands what those goals are. As you can see from their smiling faces, they are very proud of themselves when they accomplish it. So now that we've gotten them to feel the sense of self, they can start to define their actions. I'm going to ask 17-year-olds to do something most people never would want to do. And one of the ways that I'm going to turn them into nursing assistants, or one of the ways I turn them into nursing assistants, is to help them to understand that they don't suffer alone. One of my assignments that I was able to develop with the help of many professors here at Duke was a lesson around A Walk to Beautiful. A Walk to Beautiful is the story of 5 women in Ethiopia suffering from fistulas, OB fistulas. They are ostracized by their community and usually have to spend the rest of their life in loneliness and shame. My students connect with these women and see that incontinence is never something that a patient desires. It is through this movie that they begin to understand their role and how they can help a patient with incontinence in a way that is meaningful and important. I tackle the most challenging thing that I'm going to ask them to do first. In my classroom, we never respond to a code brown, but we restore a patient's dignity. They fight over each other to restore that dignity. They keep count, and it almost becomes a contest. Asking a 17-year-old student to clean a stool incontinent patient in a way that maintains this patient's dignity is the cornerstone of my work. I understand if they can do that and take value and pride in that, then they definitely have a place in healthcare. Our healthcare community, we're super lucky, embraces them, welcomes them, and teaches them because they see how much they care. We all learn together and we support each other and we become a magnificent team. Working so close, they form really intense friendships with other nursing students. These new friendships offer them support and help them to find ways to improve their current situation. It's not all work. We still have fun too, and fun bonds us together. And this presentation wouldn't be complete without a picture of Amaris holding her license, the day that she got her license just a few days ago. They go and they claim their places in healthcare. After they leave my classroom, they go out and they become wonderful workers in healthcare. Here is Selma Marie. She actually called me. She was changing her major from healthcare to teaching, and she came by the school one day and said, "Miss PJ, I need to meet with you." And we sat down, and with tears in her eyes, she said, "I don't want to be a nurse anymore. I want to be a teacher. Are you mad?" And I told her no. I was so proud of her. And I explained to her how teaching and nursing are almost exactly alike. They become PAs. They go on to be registered nurses. But the bond that they form in my classroom are bonds that last. This is Victor at his white coat ceremony. One of the proudest moments of me, as a teacher. And Shantae becoming a respiratory therapist and never giving up. As you can see, many, many times they're going to encounter lots and lots of obstacles. Children will come along, but they'll call me and text me, and I'll continue to inspire them and help them and encourage them and tell them never to give up. So how can you support and help programs like mine? You could definitely maybe be a guest speaker. This is one of my students after a nurse anesthetist student came to my classroom and volunteered to be a speaker.
I should ring in the guest speaker because she was amazing. I mean, I love the insight that I got on, and I am so going into the medical field because of her.
So you can see just a few hours or just a little bit of your time can really inspire and help these students. The other thing that is really helpful is as time on the floor becomes more and more precious, is if you can make room for them and make sure that they get those experiences in healthcare. Once they are there, please make them feel welcome. They are nervous. They are scared. This is the first time that they've stepped into a professional role, and your warm smile might be the difference between them staying and leaving. If you need volunteers, please reach out to high school programs around you and see if there aren't some students there in programs like these that would like to help. And when you're voting, please make sure that you support a board that includes CTE. It is really, really vital to their success. There's also different scholarship funds that you could donate to, students that you could adopt and mentor along their way. That is just a quick overview of how I spend my days at Wharton High School. When I started my journey here at Duke, when I started my journey here at Duke, it was always with the intention I was going to leave. But as I progressed through my classes at Duke, I realized that the education I was receiving at Duke was transforming and changing me, and that there wasn't anybody better, more worthy of a Duke education than these beautiful souls that I encountered every day. So my husband, I had made a deal with him that I was going to go back to Duke and get my master's, and then I was going to go on and teach at some community college up in the mountains of North Carolina somewhere. I had to go to him and tell him that even though that was the reason that I had started Duke, I realized now that my true purpose was to stay on campus at Wharton High School and to use my Duke education to transform the lives of these beautiful souls that I was already teaching. So I've spent a lot of money on a Duke education to end up right where I began, but I can't imagine a better way or a better use of that wonderful Duke education.